If, like me, you have a lot of empathy, the world can feel like a pretty lonely place right now. Brexit, Trump, the recent Muslim ban, things just seem very hostile. Self-interest is the order of the day. People like you and me are basically obsolete. Well, I'm not having that. I'm never having that. Now, don't get me wrong, empathy isn't a magic bullet. It's not in and of itself going to bring about positive change, but it's a critical first step. And with that in mind, here's some tips for how you can make the world a nicer and better place. Whatever we believe, however we feel towards other people, there's a reason for that. Events in our past, our personalities, and even our genetics affect the way that we think and we view the world. And that tends to be something we forget when someone does or says something that pisses us off. With that in mind, the best approach is to discover why they think the way they do. And this works for two reasons. First, things tend to be most offensive. They tend to sting the worst when they feel like a personal attack against you. And what I've learned from experience is it pretty much never is personal. So that always helps take the sting out of whatever it was they said. And when you come across that opinion again, you're ready for it. It doesn't hurt as much the second time because you know where it's coming from and you know that it's not personal. Secondly, and this works best when they're trying to stereotype you as part of a larger group, if you take the understanding approach, if you're polite towards them, if you take an interest in why it is they think the way they think, you are serving as a direct contradiction to that stereotype. When people do change their minds about a group of people, it tends to be because they know someone personally who contradicts the stereotype that other people hold. So if you be that contradiction, that's the most powerful way that you can change someone's mind. And we know this works. A perfect example is with parents when their kids come out to them. It's important to realize that the vast majority of people are well-intentioned in what they believe, and that implementing their beliefs will result in a better world. And that's some common ground you always have. Okay, let me explain. Let's say that you're introduced to someone with autism, and you're warned about it in advance. What do? You make allowances for the way they behave, because you know they can't help it. But when dealing with most people, we tend to act as if they have 100% free will and total control over their actions, and they're completely responsible. If something's easy for us, it's easy for them. Anything bad they do, there's no excuse. What they've done is despicable, and they should be ashamed of themselves. There's just one problem with that. It's hopelessly unrealistic. We all have blind spots in our self-awareness. We all have personality quirks that will annoy someone. There's no way to please absolutely everyone. It's just not possible. If people have grown up in a social setting where they've had a certain set of beliefs constantly reinforced, religion for example, they're not just going to be able to change all of those beliefs in a single instance as a result of one conversation they've had with you. It simply doesn't work that way. Their community, their work, their entire social life is bound up in believing these things, and that gives them an enormous incentive not to believe anything else. And there are some things people cannot change at all. Their race, their sexual orientation, their gender identity. And some people have a more difficult time with certain things than you might do. Things like weight, sexual urges, ability to control their temper. Now, I'm not saying we should just abdicate all responsibility and people can do whatever they like regardless of who it hurts. I'm saying there's an explanation for their behaviour, and different things work for different people. So knowing these individual people helps you come up with better strategies for dealing with them. And if you take the time to understand them, they're more likely to help you back. And then it snowballs and things are just better for everyone. Okay, so this one isn't entirely selfless. At high school, I fell into this category myself. We can all think of examples of people who don't fit in at our schools, at our work, wherever it happens to be. And there are many reasons why this could be. Say it's a school. Maybe sports is something that's really important at your school. Everyone has to be sporty and anyone who's not tends to be left out. Maybe they have depression or social anxiety, so it's just more difficult for them to reach out to other people and speak to them. But let's say that they do reach out. don't reject them. And look, if you're in the in-group, it might not win you a lot of points to get to know this person. If they reach out to you, your friends might turn on you for showing any kind of compassion. And it's at this point that you have to make a choice. What kind of people do you want in your life? Now, I have a policy. I will be friends with whoever the fuck I want. And there have been situations in the past where I've introduced two of my friends to each other and they haven't gotten along. In fact, they've hated each other. Now, when that happens, I do the best that I possibly can to make sure I don't arrange anything that ends up with these two people seeing each other again. But what I expect from them is that they're okay with me being friends with both of those people. And thankfully, I've never had to deal with that problem before. But if they're not, we're at an impasse. I don't expect to be made to choose between my friends, and you shouldn't either. Now, let's say that you're the loser. Well, as a professional outcast myself, here's some advice. Your tribe is out there somewhere. Whatever you like doing, people like you will also be doing it, so reach out to those people. Or just get involved in that community and wait for them to reach out to you. Someone will. And when they do, give those people a chance. You may well see the in-group as being an enemy. And if you're in the in-group, you may see the losers as being the enemy to some extent as well. I can guarantee you the enemy isn't nearly as bad as you think. One of the main things I'm doing with this channel is documenting my progress in understanding the world better, in developing my own skills in all sorts of different areas. And the point of doing this is to encourage other people to become their ideal selves. No one is there yet, but whoever it is you want to be eventually, I want you to become that person and I will be there to help you. But we have a nasty habit of tending to shame people when we should be encouraging them. A classic example of this, and something that I mentioned earlier in the video, is weight gain. Now, numerous studies show that shaming people when it comes to weight in particular does not work. When people want to lose weight, because this is something that's linked to their self-esteem, when they feel bad, they lose all motivation to continue doing it. A lot of the time, comfort eating is one of their coping mechanisms. So you can see how that doesn't quite work. But one thing that always does is encouragement. When they succeed, when they're proud of their achievements, be there to celebrate them. When they fail, be there to pick them up. It goes back to this idea that what's easy for you might not be easy for other people. If you tell them that it's easy, but that's not their experience, they're going to zone out. They're not going to be interested. Acknowledge the difficulty and really, truly support them. They will feel better, their self-esteem will be higher, they will have more motivation, and they'll be more successful as a result. When they no longer have to worry about these problems, they're more receptive to yours. And that brings me on to the next point. Now, don't get me wrong. If you can't afford to donate to charities, I'm not saying you should. There are many other ways you can help. One of these is volunteering. I myself was a scout leader for nearly 10 years. But let's say that you don't really like getting your hands dirty, maybe you have social anxiety, maybe you're lazy. Who knows? There's still one really important way that you can help. Boost the signal. If there are charities that you have a lot of respect for, or companies that are very charitable, or even politicians that work very closely with their community and are always on their side when it comes to the policies that they choose to support or draw up, tell people about them. You do the entire world a favour when you let other people know about them. Tweet about it, share Facebook posts, make YouTube videos about it, tell your friends and family. The more visible these people are, the more respect they get. The more people think that it's cool to support them, the more people will. It will snowball, and again, the world will be a better place. But the number one reason why this is so important and powerful is this. A lot of people have the view that you have to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. These are people that can't take care of themselves. One of the main reasons why we have the Donald as president is because so many people were so desperate for someone to pay attention to their interests that they didn't care that the guy who did was racist, sexist, homophobic, all of these different things. They just wanted someone to address their concerns, and they thought he could. Whether that was right or not is a completely different story. They just thought he could, and that's what's important. And when these people's needs are met, they're far more receptive to your ideas. Look, some of us are lazy, some of us are depressed, some of us are poor, and some of us just really don't like people that much. I get it, believe me, I do. I'm not expecting massive change immediately. If that doesn't work for you, then start off as small and as slowly as you need to. Maybe sharing that charity on Facebook or Twitter won't do much, but it is a start. It's one small action that builds on other people's small actions. And if you like how it feels, that feeling will give you the energy and desire to do more. But if you try to do too much at once, it's very possible you'll be in over your head at the sheer scale of what you've tried to do, and you'll just end up giving up. This is why so many people give up on their New Year's resolutions. So start at the tiniest possible scale, and I'll give you an example of something I'm doing. If you follow my Twitter, you know that I have an enormous interest in climate change, things like clean tech that can help solve these problems. But one very significant contributor to climate change is the meat industry, and there are no shortage of YouTubers that I'm subscribed to that have made the choice to go vegan. And I've been thinking about how I might do this myself, but there are quite a few problems that I have to address first. The big one is literally all of my favourite foods involve meat, so burgers, steaks, chicken from the Chinese. For this to work, I would need to find vegan foods that I really, really like, so much so that they replace the old favourites. I also have to bear in mind that I can't really cook beyond using the microwave, and I'm very lazy when it comes to dishes. Obviously, cooking involves pots and pans and things like that you have to wash, whereas at the moment I just have to wash my plates and cutlery and glasses. These are massive changes I have to make that pretty much guarantee that if I go cold turkey, pun intended, it's not going to work. Now, I'm not making excuses. I'm 100% committed to doing this eventually, but I have to do it in a way that works for me and is going to be sustainable in the long term. So I started by making one very simple change that I can now safely say I'm guaranteed not to relapse on. I used to drink milk. I changed that to soy milk, and this isn't a sacrifice. To me, it just tastes so much better. If you have to start small and get there slowly, that's far better than making a massive change straight away, being disillusioned, being in over your head, and giving up completely. You do what works for you. The more empathy we show, the more we encourage others to do it, the better the world becomes. It's just the first in a number of steps that need to take place before the world actually becomes a better place. But when we know we can count on the support of other people, every other step is easier and a lot more fun. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and I would love to hear down below what changes you want to make in your life. And if you want to support a channel that will always have your back, that will always be there to encourage you, consider subscribing, following me on my various socials down below, and I will see you next time.